And we are live. Hey, good evening, guys. Tonight is going to be a very, very special edition. We've got my business partner, Jacinda Walker. She is an attorney. And we're here to talk about one of the biggest topics that we run into in real estate, aside from the down payment piece and getting approved, it's the closing costs. What is closing costs? What's included in closing costs? Why is my closing cost so high? Can the seller pay all of my closing costs? We're going to answer all things closing costs. If you guys have any questions pertaining to closing costs, those are the questions we're going to answer first. Drop them over in the chat. We will get to them. Jacinda, introduce yourself to our audience and let them know who you are.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jacinda Walker. I'm the managing attorney of the J. Walker Law Group. I've been practicing for about 13 years, but like Kevin said, we are business partners. Real estate is my life. I dip and dabble in international real estate. I invest myself here in Atlanta, and I also teach tax liens courses and workshops, and I do some coaching with people who are interested in going the investment route of tax liens. So all the way around, I do real estate.
Got you. So I'm going to start off, Jacinda, with what we charge as lenders on closing costs.
Okay.
So, closing costs, let me define it first. Closing costs is what's paid to close on the home. So, when you have down payments, the down payment that you pay is used to pay down on the mortgage. If you purchase a $200,000 house and your down payment is 3.5% using FHA, you're bringing $7,000 to the table as your down payment. Now, your closing cost is going to be different. And I want to dispel a huge myth about closing costs. Closing cost is not a percentage of the sales price. It can't be. Because if you're in, let's say, Georgia, let's say you're in Henry County and you look at a property that's 200,000, but then you also look at a property in Clayton County that's 200,000, the taxes aren't going to be the same.
Right.
The homeowner's insurance isn't going to be the same. You could be inside of city limits in Henry County and not in city limits in Clayton County. So I don't care what anybody tell you, including your realtor or your lender. It is not a percentage of the closing cost of the sales price. It's no way it can be. It's no way it can be. Even if they give you a figure of, hey, it's generally 3.5%, that's not true. We're in a market where they have something called discount points. Discount points is what's used to get the actual rate that you have. And in this market, most all loans have discount points or your rate is slightly higher. So let's say example on a property you're looking to buy, you talk to your lender and they say, hey, we can get you a 6.5% interest rate. However, it's going to cost you 1 point. That's a discount point. A discount point is 1% of the loan amount. So that's 1% there. If you're inside of Stockbridge city limits and stop in Henry County county limits, that's going to put you probably at 3% right there because the taxes are higher in those areas because of the school districts, right? So closing costs is not a percentage like discount. I mean, closing costs is not a percentage like the down payment portion. So from the lender standpoint, what we typically charge, we charge an underwriting and appraisal fee. Those could vary combined together. I'm going to say the average is probably somewhere around 1,200 to $1,500, depending on your lender for the underwriting and processing. That's where the processor gets paid for processing your loan and the underwriter gets paid for underwriting your loan. Now, on top of that, you have discount points. Discount points is exactly what I described. Is what it costs to get that interest rate, right? Now, some companies also charge an origination fee. The origination fee is equivalent to a discount point, but they use the origination fee as a charge to do the actual loan. So you could hear that one company doesn't charge discount points, but they charge an origination fee. It's going to be the same in terms of pricing. Sometimes, and I may be getting too deep, but sometimes companies use origination fees to help offset what they don't or can't charge in discount points. So it's a little bit of mortgage magic, but they do it right. Now, those are the fees that lenders charge. People say, oh, well, there's a whole bunch of junk. I'll let Jacinda talk about that part. Jacinda, what do attorneys charge in closing costs? And I'll ask you a couple questions.
So typically, as attorneys, we put on the HUD, we put an attorney fee, which typically is anywhere from $600 to $1,000. Sometimes it can be a little bit more depending on what firm you're using. We're going to put a title fee, and that encompasses like us pulling the actual documents, making sure the house is clear, and the attorney's review, right? Review of that. We also include title insurance. Most lenders require it. So there'll be a lender's title insurance policy that protects the lender, and then an owner's title insurance policy that protects you. Title insurance is just like if anything happens, if anything's on the title that the attorney missed, it basically covers you. So you're not allowed, it'll just make sure you don't have to come out of pocket if something happens, right? That's like any other insurance. Just in case something happens, it's there. It's a one-time fee that's paid at closing. We also are required to put taxes on there. So like what Kevin was saying, we're required to prorate taxes. So the city or county taxes, we'll prorate those, put those on there. There's also transfer tax. Okay, the state of Georgia has a transfer tax that is 3% of the sales price. That's the only set percentage that we actually have. Okay, so you'll pay transfer tax, and then there'll be like some fees. There'll be like recording fees, things that are required by the county. Those will be on there as well. So there's a whole category of what we call closing costs. And when you look at what your lender sends to you, it's going to be on page 2 of that estimated CD or HUD, depending on what your lender uses. You'll see a breakdown of the estimated closing costs.
Gotcha. So another fee that I forgot to mention is there's going to be a fee for credit reports that lenders charge. Credit reports are not free. They cost the lender, right? And not the only time. Most lenders don't charge you for the credit report fee until you go to closing, right? So it costs them to pull credit, and they pass that charge on to you once you go to closing. Now, I do know that because credit report fees have increased drastically over the last year or so, that some lenders are charging you to pull your credit. I can see it in both ways, right? I can see it as a cost of reducing and doing business. Right now, I talk to different brokers and mortgage companies, and sometimes just credit reports alone, their bills are $5,000 and $6,000 a month. If they don't close a single one of those loans, they still have a $5,000 or $6,000 bill that they have to pay out. So that it does a couple of things. It keeps people sometimes from shopping, or if you know you have to pay to play, then you're kind of hesitant of saying, hey, I'm going to apply with this person if you're not going to go with them and be serious, or if you're not in position, right? And that it costs, just to give you an example, it costs to do a soft pull or a hard pull. And if they pull it multiple times, they pass that on to you as well, whether it's before closing or at closing. So that's a fee. When you look at the HUD or the CD, right? And or if your agent reviews it with you, sometimes they'll call things junk fees. We can't really charge outside of what we can charge. It's illegal. So if it's on there, it's because we utilized it and you have to we pass it along to the buyer because you're purchasing a home. And that's common. Just like the seller has to give you their remaining tax bill and you reimburse them, it's the same thing with us. We just pass it along to you guys, and it's not junk fees. I had one person tell me, hey, what's this $10 fee that Georgia's charging? That goes to Georgia. It doesn't go to the lender. It goes to Georgia. You're going to run across a ton of little fees like recordation fees, carrier fees, like all of those things get charged to you because you're closing on the home, and the people have to be paid. It's not the attorney trying to nickel and dime you, and it's not the lender trying to nickel and dime you. Everybody wants to get paid, and guess who they're gonna come to for their money once it goes? The attorney's office.
Yep, they want their money. And they want it immediately upon closing. So I do want to clarify too that, yeah, I agree. There are no junk fees. Like literally, it's part of our responsibility to make sure there are no junk fees and that the fees are correct according to the terms of the contract. So that's kind of like our role. But when it comes to the Georgia state fees, like we actually have to get it done within a certain time frame or we get fined. So it's very important that not only do we make sure that it's there, if for some reason we leave it off and you guys don't pay it, we still have to pay it. We have to come out of pocket and pay it. Like it has to be done. So just know that that's the reason why we're like, okay, I just want to make sure it's right. Make sure the CD is correct because we have to pay those fees and we have to record your title, like your deeds, within a certain amount of time or we get fined.
Wow. Which that's a good point, Jacinda. So you'll hear us talk about HUD, a HUD one, or a CD, better known as a closing disclosure, right? The closing disclosure has to be presented to the buyer at least 3 days prior to closing. So we have to get that to you so you have an idea of exactly or an estimate of what you're going to be paying at closing. Typically, it's not the final numbers because the lender's still doing his part, trying to get the file closed. Sometimes the buyer's still trying to come up with the money. Like there's so many moving parts, but we have to disclose to you what, and to give you an idea of what has to be paid or what, or how much you'll be paying, right? Sometimes we'll get a clear to close because it was a great file and our team and the buyers did a great job moving it forward, but we can't go to closing or settlement without those 3 days from the CD. I've had people say, oh, well, can't you just do it in advance? No, we can't do it because what happens is we get fined. Mm-hmm. And I've had some agents say, well, the other lender and attorney's office did. I'm pretty sure they didn't because we would get fined. So
it's not worth it.
It's not. So, I think it's something ridiculous like $1 million or something.
It's just not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. So so the closing disclosure and the HUD one is the document that you will get to see what you're going to be looking for. Jacinda, so you guys do a title search, mm-hmm. right?
Yes.
Can you go through what the title search is like in terms of how far back you go and what it all entails?
So really the title search depends on who the lender is and what you're doing. But for a traditional purchase, we typically go back 100 years. Okay, so that's pretty much the normal search, right? It could be, I think it's 3 or 4 owners or 100 years. And typically we just do 100 years to cover our basis. But it's actually established by the lender. The lender tells us how far back to go. Some lenders only require 50. But because we put our title insurance on the line, sometimes we go back further than that just to make sure that everything is okay. Because we don't want anything to happen where you have to use the title insurance. We want to clear everything up on the front end. So a title search is where we basically go to the courthouse or go into the system and we literally pull any documents that are associated with the property. So we see if there's any liens against you as a potential buyer, liens against the seller, liens against the property itself, any outstanding water bills, sanitation for Fulton and DeKalb, because those can be astronomical from time to time. We look at property taxes. We get the HOA. We're like, hey, there is an HOA. It's active. What is the HOA fees? Like, are you current on your HOA fees? Give us an HOA letter to show that you're current. And that letter also tells us what it costs for the new person that's coming in, and they usually have like an initiation fee to be a part of the HOA. So we just want to make sure there's nothing going on with the property that you would still be responsible for once the closing is over. Like you should be starting with a completely clean slate when you get this property.
Right. And they do that because if it's a lien and it follows the property, there's a possibility that that person who owns that lien can foreclose on the home.
Yeah, and you don't want that. You don't want that. You don't want to start out your new investment. And for most people, your primary residence is your major investment of your life, right? You don't want to have somebody else's junk attached to your home. And they can foreclose. So, we want to make sure the HOAs are paid because HOAs actually have a lot of power to foreclose on homes if you don't pay them the way they're supposed to be paid. It is incredible. So we just want to make sure everything's good, nothing's going to come down on you. At the same token, because you're getting a loan as a buyer, we look to see if there's any liens against you as well. And just know and don't be caught off guard if you have like a prior judgment or something going on that didn't even show on your credit. But if it shows on the real estate side of things, when we pull title, because we search court records, know that it's going to have to be paid at closing. I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions that I see. And so like, but it's not, I'm the borrower, I'm the buyer. Because as soon as you get into this house and the property is titled in your name, that lien attaches to the property. So we got to make sure it's clear on both ends. So just know, if you got anything outstanding, it won't stop your closing. It just has to be paid at closing.
Gotcha. So if you guys are just joining this live, we are talking to Jacinda Walker, managing attorney of J. Walker Law Group. I gotta get used to saying that. And what we're discussing is all things closing costs, what's entailed, even closing, what's involved in closing. If you're just joining, do us a huge favor and go back to the beginning after this live and take a listen, because we hit on some great points. If you are new to our channel, do a huge favor and hit the subscribe button. And if you're a family member, which I see a lot of family members in the chat, please do me a huge favor. You know what to do. Give us a thumbs up so this can go out to the YouTube algorithm. So the other thing I want to talk about is, why is it important to have a attorney do your closing?
Well, in Georgia, it's required. Like, it's literally the law. You're not supposed to have a closing without an attorney present in Georgia. Okay. Georgia is what we call an attorney state. South Carolina is as well. Certain states require attorneys to oversee the process just to make sure that everything's done the way it's supposed to be done. One is because we have a license, right, that we have to protect, and we have what they call fiduciary duties. And it just means that we have a responsibility to you as a buyer, to the seller, as someone listing their property, to make sure that the sale goes smoothly. Another reason is because a lot of other, like, just lay people don't understand what happens. So like, it's really important to have someone who understands the real estate laws in the state that you're in. So whether it be a title company or whether it be a law firm, depending on what state you're in, it's important to have someone who understands the process and understands and make sure that your title is clear. Because you just want to, like I said, you just want to protect your investment. You want to make sure you're able to close. If something comes up that's unusual, you want to make sure they know what to do in order to close you. Because we do have things that happen, and attorneys have to work to clear up the files. And so you want to have someone with experience so they can work to fill up your file, clear up your file so that you're able to go forth and close.
Gotcha. So what you're saying is, I can't go down to the courthouse, do the research myself, and we sign it on a napkin?
No, you cannot. You should not. So one of the things I tell people is, a lot of people like to do quitclaim deeds amongst family. And I always tell people to be really careful with a quitclaim deed, even when it's amongst family. Okay, because one of the things that happens is they'll quitclaim it. They'll like quitclaim it to their aunt, right? Or vice versa. And the niece will be like, okay, well, now I'm ready to refi. Jacinda, pull the title. I'm ready to refi. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you're ready to refi, but now you have 3 liens and 4 years of property taxes. And she's like, but that's before me. That was before I got the property. But when you quitclaim, when you use a quitclaim deed, there's no guarantee of what you're being issued. So no attorney looked at the file. No attorney made sure there weren't liens. No title company reviewed anything. So you're pretty much stuck with everything that's associated with that property. So my cautionary tale is, even if you are exchanging property between family members because you're going to take it over and renovate the home and refinance and get the equity out and do something with the property other than just let it sit, you still want to make sure you go through a title company or an attorney so that you're able to turn around and talk to Kevin, right? And be able to refi and go through with your plans like you planned on doing, without having a lot of extra debt and a lot of extra liens that you weren't aware of.
Gotcha. I got a question for you that I've gotten before.
Okay.
Are the attorney's fees negotiable?
No. Like typically we have a fee sheet. Like most reputable firms have a fee sheet, so there's no we can't go up on fees. We don't really go down on fees. Like the fees are the fees. Now I have been in a situation just like agents where they're like, oh my God, this person needs $4,000 to close and they're $50 short. Of course, I'm gonna find the $50 so they can close. You know, of course, because the agent's probably have already taken a hit. Of course, an attorney's going to take a hit and take the $50 personal hit. But honestly, as a standard, no. Our fees are set. There are times we'll price match in order to help somebody out. They're like, hey, I usually use XYZ firm. You know, your attorney fee is a little higher than that. And we'll say, hey, send me their fee sheet and I'll price match them. I'll match their prices. I don't want to not have you getting what you're used to, and I'll match their prices, but they're really not negotiable per se.
Got you. What in terms of like total attorney's fees, not including like the record, not including like the state taxes and all that, how much is it typically for closing from the attorney's office?
So just the attorney fees, do you want me to include title insurance? Because really what the most that you're being charged from the attorney perspective is always going to be title insurance. Okay. That is what the most expensive part is. And we don't actually control that. Like the insurance company actually has set rates according to the price of the home, according to the price of what they're insuring, as to what the title insurance costs. And we get a new binder every single year. So it's just like going to State Farm and being like, I want car insurance, and you put it in the system. You be like, okay, your car insurance is going to be this. Like we don't set the rates for title insurance. We just offer it. So title insurance, it varies depending on the price, right? But generally speaking, the two fees that always pretty much remain the same is going to be the attorney fee, and I say anywhere from $600 to $1,000. The title pull fee, like to pull the actual title and review the title, and that'll be anywhere from $175 to maybe $350. And then the actual, like sometimes we charge a post-closing fee because there's, we got to mail stuff here, we got to wire here, we got to do different things after. And the post-closing will be anywhere from $150 to $350 as well.
Got you. And the other thing is, I want you guys to understand when you look at your CD, right, you're going to see something that says hazard insurance, which is a homeowner's insurance, which is different than mortgage insurance, which is different than titles insurance.
Yes.
So you're going to see three different things that say insurance. You're not being charged three times for the same thing. Homeowner's insurance / hazard insurance covers your house if it catches on fire, act of God or something like that. That happens. The mortgage insurance is paid directly to the servicer. Well, not the servicer, it's paid directly to whoever is backing your loan, whether it's FHA, Fannie Mae, or Freddie Mac. That goes to them. And then the entitled insurance is charged one time, and it protects you. Does it protect you for the life of the loan?
It does, but it protects you for as long as you hold the property, actually, as longer than the life of the loan. And depending on what title insurance company you have, some of them actually drop down to your heirs. So if your heir was to inherit a property, that title insurance policy will cover them as well.
Okay. So even if there's no mortgage on there anymore, it still covers the family.
Correct.
Got you. Okay. That's great to know. Hey, guys. I see a lot of you dropping your questions. We're about to start answering some questions. However, do us a huge favor. Give us a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and take some notes because this is very important. Aside from down payment, I think closing costs and the cost of closing costs is probably the most confusing thing to people, as well as them not even really knowing what closing cost is. So let me be honest with you. A good lender will go over the fee sheets with you as you get them. A good lender will go over it with you. However, you're going to, so when you get the initial disclosures from us, the lender, you're going to see fees. That's an estimate. We don't know what the attorney's office is charging. We don't know what homeowner's insurance is. We don't have an idea of what taxes are. There's a lot of things that we don't have and don't know at that point. A lot of people want to know, oh, is this my final number? Me personally, I always estimate high because I would rather tell you, hey, you need $25,000 up front and then you only need 20 than saying, hey, you need 17 and then you need 25. It's always an easier conversation to go down than it is to go up because it's hard
Always.
to it's hard to find that extra money, So I always estimate on the high side. And if you're working with a lender, make sure they are honest with the fees. And I'm gonna tell you what I mean. Sometimes you have certain lenders who lowball the fees and rates to get you in, and then once it's time for the actual numbers to come out, it's way more than expected, and they come up with, oh, this was higher than I thought. So when you compare, let's say you compare my fee sheet against another lender's fee sheet, question me. Say, hey Kevin, why are your closing costs this high, or why is this charge there? Ask me those questions. It's my job to explain it to you and make sure you have an understanding. In the same regards, ask the other lender, hey, I'm talking to another lender. Why are your fees so much significantly lower than his, right? Every lender doesn't charge the same for underwriting and processing. Every lender doesn't have the same pricing on discount points. Some charge origination, some don't. Sometimes they have additional fees. Another fee that I didn't mention that you'll see on your sheet is called a reinspection fee. Typically, that reinspection fee you'll see will be around $125, $150. We have to disclose that. However, it's only going to be charged to you if the appraiser has to go back out and reinspect the property. If he or she doesn't have to reinspect your property for some reason, then that's taken off of the off of your sheet, off your CD. Let me scroll up to some of these questions.
And just to hop, I know you're about to ask some questions, but I want to hop on a point you made.
Okay.
There's nothing worse than getting to the table and having a surprise borrower. So just make sure that, like, the attorney is definitely going to explain every fee on the HUD or CD to you, or the title company, right? Depending on what state you're in, to make sure you understand exactly what you're paying. But that shouldn't be the first time you're going over your fees in detail. That should just be like a refresher. So if you feel like it's going to be the first time that you're going over your fees in detail, if you haven't done that by the time you're coming up to your closing, that's problematic. You need to reach out to your lender, right? So just know that that's not normal. Like, you're supposed to go over them in detail before you come to closing.
Right. Angie, let me get back to her question. Or Ange B. Does closing cost fees need to be sourced or only the down payment? Any money that you provide for closing has to be sourced. Down payment, closing costs. So, example, if you're getting down payment assistance from a down payment assistance program, then they're approved with HUD, then we're fine. If you're getting closing cost assistance from the seller, then that's being sourced from the seller selling the house, that's fine. If you are bringing your own down payment and closing costs, yes, we need to source and see where it comes from. We need to make sure it's not coming from an interested party, undisclosed, and we need to make sure that it is seasoned or source funds. So I'm going to tell you now, if you're out here in YouTube land and you have money at home in a brown paper bag, shoebox, or under the mattress, please get that in the bank. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a sourceable thing, because some people keep money at home, but you're not going to be able to go to closing with Jacinda with a duffel bag.
You are
You're
absolutely
going to have
absolutely not.
But everything has to be, it has to be sourced. It is to help cut down on illegal activities and fraud being laundered through real estate. But that's a great question.
Well, Kevin, what do you mean by season? Explain what you mean by season, because I get that question a lot.
So it has to be. So when we see your bank statements, we ask for 2 months of the most recent bank statements. Now, those 2 months most recent bank statements are going to be, could be two different things. We definitely need the one that has your direct deposits in there, right? If you're a W-2 employee or 1099, right? And then it has to be the account that has the money that you have that you're using for down payment and closing costs. We even source the earnest money.
Mhm.
Like even though it's $1,000, we source where it comes from. If we source, or not if, but we source where the appraisal money comes from. Like we make sure we keep account of all of that money. When I say seasoned, um, essentially it has to be come from the bank or from a source that's seasoned, meaning it's in a bank. Like it's
Mhm.
not coming from your mattress or at home. Like it has to be money that's been sitting in an account. Example, if you are getting a gift from a family member, we source where it comes from, right? We get a gift letter from the family member. We get them with their bank account number, their name, relationship to you. They sign and you sign. We also get a copy of their most recent bank statement, all pages showing that they have the funds in the account to do, because what we can't do is your closing cost is $10,000. You're getting a gift from your mom, and all of a sudden she miraculously has a $10,000 deposit the day before her bank statement ends. And it could happen, right? But then they're going to say this is too much of a coincidence. Where'd that $10,000 come from? And if she says, "Hey, I went out and got a loan so that my daughter or son could, or my grandkids could buy a home," then that's fine, right? That's fine, but she's going to have to give us documentation of where it came from. If we can't source those funds, then we can't use them. Now, seasoning means it has to be in the bank for a period of time. It has to be, if you're giving us your most recent two bank statements, it needs to be in it, and if it's money at home, it needs to be in before those bank statements so it's in your balance. So let me make sure I make sense. I know people who get their tax return check, they cash it and they keep it home for whatever reason, right? Or it's direct deposit into their account, they pull it out and they keep it at home for whatever rainy day, emergency, or whatever. Now they haven't had a rainy day, they haven't had an emergency, and they're looking to buy a house, and they want to use this as their closing costs or down payment. It came from the government, but now it's sitting home as cash for 2 months. You need to deposit that money into your account so that it's been there and we can see that it's there. And if it's questioned, we can just go to your bank and get a copy of your deposit where you deposited the check. If you do hair or you cut hair and they pay you in cash, that's going to be hard to source and season unless you have a history of depositing 50, 100, $200 in the bank, and then it's also being sourced and being used as income. So it's so many different factors that you have. And guys, even though they provide a monthly statement now, if you're running a business, it's still hard for us to source cash app payments.
Mhm.
It's hard to source those. We can do Zelle because Zelle goes from one bank to the other, but Cash App still goes to the Cash App. We have a statement, but a lot of people are moving money back and forth, and sometimes you just don't really know where it comes from. So if you're going to utilize Cash App, even though I'm against it, you want to make sure you make deposits often so it's into your account as opposed to running it up to $3,000 and then depositing it when you're ready to purchase a home. Hopefully, all of that made sense.
It did.
Let me get to another question. Brown sugar. What is the typical fee for a soft and hard pull? It varies from lender to lender, but I know they're starting to be in excess of, for like a single person, it's somewhere around 50, $60. And for a married couple, it's $100 because you're pulling two people's credit. So if you go to a lender and they give you a game plan and you want to pull credit right away because you paid off that bill, they're going to be apprehensive because one, it hasn't shown up on your credit.
Mhm.
Two, that's another credit pull, and they're going to have to answer to somebody, or they're not going to pull it again. And three, it just makes sense to be apprehensive simply because I've seen, and it's happened to me. I've given a game plan, I've pulled credit two, three times, and then you went with what you thought was a better deal for you. Even though
Mhm.
you wouldn't have been in that position without that lender or without me, you still did what was best for you. I get it. I understand. That's why some lenders charge up front because you pay to play. And if you walk away, they haven't lost anything. Um, would it be safe to say that $42,000 would be suffice for down payment on 3.5% on a 450,000 home? Yeah, for down payment and closing costs, 42,000 is probably more than enough unless you're getting hit with a ton of discount points or origination charge fees. But 42,000 should be enough. The down payment is only going to be 3.5%, so that's probably about $15,000 or so. Hello, Miss Norma. I heard you have a closing on the 5th. Congratulations. Hey guys, if you can throw some hearts in the chat from Miss NKJM, who should be closing on her home on March the 5th.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Um, Laquana, what happens when the buyer doesn't send over the contingency form with the due diligence? Not sure if I understand that.
What do you mean by contingency form?
Yeah, drop that in the chat, Laquana, and let us figure it out for you. Hey, y'all, Kevin. If we, I would like to be in a home in LT end of July, uh, when would I have to close? It says, when should we start the pre-approval process, and are you experienced with VA home loans and active military? I am experienced with VA loans, active military. I love my veterans. When should you start the pre-approval process? In the words of Bernie Mac, immediately. So the reason the reason why you want to do it immediately is to make sure that you qualify. Make sure you
Mhm.
have the score, make sure of the process. Because what you don't want to do is wait till 2 months before you have to be somewhere or your lease is up and then you don't qualify and you either have to go month to month or do a 6 month lease or a lease for an additional year. So I would say start now. We're almost into March. It takes about 72 hours for us to figure out what you need to do. The credit report is good for 120 days. Let's say you get qualified in March, it takes you 2, 3 weeks. Let's say it takes you 2 or 3 weeks to find a property and you go under contract, and then all of a sudden you close and within 30 days of that. So that puts us into late April. May, you could be into your house. Even if you found a property and you closed in May, you would be able to you would still be ahead of the game. Let's say June, you found a property in May and you close in June, you still would be in there before July. However, you don't want to wait until, I think we're going to see a huge change. We're going to see a huge change in April and May. Not even if
Mhm.
interest rates go down, just for the fact that people are looking to get situated before school starts back up. You have people graduating. It's the
Mhm.
peak season. People are hot and ready to move. Leases are up. So I would say start now. If you're good to go, you have a little time to play. If not, then you have an understanding of what you need to do to qualify. But yes, I'm very seasoned with VA loans, as you know, very seasoned with VA loans and active military. Since I have you here, you asked about active military. Something that we need from people in the active military that sometimes takes a while to get is a copy of your service orders. If you're on here and you are a veteran and no longer in the military, make sure you have a copy of your DD 214. And with that information, we can get your certificate of eligibility. Thank you, Purple Heart Elephant. A purple elephant. I said Purple Heart. I'm thinking in the military. um, hey everyone, how does assumable mortgage loan work? They don't. No, I'm just messing. So what happens is, let's say Jacinda has a house that she wants to sell for $500,000, but she only owes 300,000 on it, and let's say her interest rate is 3.5%. You have to go to her mortgage company to get financing,
Mhm.
and you have to go through their process of assuming the loan from her. So that's great. So you're telling me I can get her loan with the terms that are left, 3.5%, and it's $300,000? Yes. But guess what? Jacinda still needs her additional $200,000 that she walks away with. And that's where the problem lies. The
Mhm.
person coming up with the additional $200,000. Not only that, what I've been hearing, it's been so long since people have done enough assumable loans, is that some mortgage companies don't have a process because no one there has ever done it, and there's no specific time frame. So like, with me, you're gonna close on a loan, it could take 30 days, sometimes 45, depending on what you're doing or your time frame in there. It could take them 6 months to decide if they're going to let you to assume the loan, because you have to be approved through them. So the assume a loan, you don't use an outside mortgage lender. You go directly to the seller's servicer or mortgage company. You apply with them and see if you can qualify for it. You also are only able to assume, oh my God, you can assume a VA loan. You can assume an FHA loan. I don't think you can assume conventional. And I drew a blank because I know this. However, there will be a link below for my video on assumable mortgages.
Yeah, yeah. There are some conventional loans that are assumable, but I haven't seen very many in the last 10 years, honestly. I haven't seen very many at all. And then for veteran assumable loans, there's a lot of standards that you have to meet. You have to qualify just like a veteran would. You have to be able to qualify for that VA loan, whatever the standards are, to even be considered. So it's a long process. Back in the day when we used to do them, um, 6 months easy, just like short
Yeah,
sales. 6 months easy for an assumable loan.
got you. Well, that's it. It's a great sounding product if you can get through it. And some people can. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the numbers were last year, like 10,000 loans were assumed, which is a high number, but it's low relative to the million loans that were done.
Right. And
You know,
probably most of those were family too, honestly.
yep,
That's who
family
I assume
members.
that's who I see doing the most assumable loans is like children taking over their parents' mortgage, basically, is where I
Yeah,
see it the most happening.
got you. Yep, and that makes sense. At that point, you can hold out and wait.
Mm-hmm.
Can you keep your down payment and closing costs into a high yield savings account and move it into your checking account at closing? Yep, because you can get a statement from your high yielding savings account. And that's super smart because you're making money on that money. While we're talking about it, your closing costs can come from a retirement fund like
Mm-hmm.
a 401k. It can come from a self directed, or excuse me, an IRA. So you can pull it from retirement sources. Just remember, as long as you can pull that money out and it's liquid, you can pull out liquid cash and it's sourceable, we can do it.
Now, what about stocks? Like, what if I'm like, I got a huge stock portfolio and I want to pull some money out? I know it
Yes.
takes same thing. Okay.
Yep. Same thing. You can pull it from your stocks. I've had someone pull it from their universal life insurance policy.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Because it's sourceable. It's
Yep.
sourceable funds. Yep. So there's a lot of ways that you can pull cash for closing costs. Just remember, as long as there's a paper trail, you typically can use it. What are the benefits of buying a foreclosure? Go ahead, Jacinda.
So it's not so much the benefits when you're talking about foreclosures, it's the risk. Okay. So with a foreclosure, there's always a little bit of a risk. So typically when you go to a foreclosure auction, all previous liens are erased. Okay, typically. Sometimes it does not work for foreclosures, especially if the foreclosure is not done correctly for federal tax liens, okay, in certain categories. Also, when you talk about buying a foreclosure, we have that buyer beware. You basically buy it as is. Typically, with foreclosures, you're not able to see the inside of it, so you have no idea what the condition is of the property. You need to be prepared to renovate it. You need to be prepared for certain things, like it for not to have any appliances, for it not to have copper, for there to be some damages that have to be done to the property. So you need to be prepared for that when you do take on a foreclosure. And in addition to foreclosures, most foreclosures, like you have to have cash, right? You got to have the ability, you have to have the disposable income, because typically it depends on the state. I know that some states are allowing financing of foreclosures, but by far, most of them require you to bid, which means you have to have the ability to send a wire or have a cashier's check to be given the day of the foreclosure at the time that the auction happens. So just be aware of that as well. Typically, it's a live bidding process, and the largest bid, the highest bid wins. So I would say it's less about can it be advantageous? Yes. For me, with foreclosures, it's more about the pitfalls and just making sure you understand what's going on with the property. They're typically not going to do a title search. So you just got to make sure you know what's going on with that property before you go bid on it.
Gotcha. Let me clear something up too, Jacinda. So when people ask, what's the benefit of buying a foreclosure is when you're at the courthouse steps. Are you talking about an REO, which is real estate owned property?
Oh, that's true.
Now,
that's different. Yeah,
yep,
that's
which
different.
is totally different.
Yeah, and you're right. I didn't even think about that. I was like, foreclosures, courthouse steps, but you're right. REOs are different. REOs
Yeah,
are
definitely different.
Mm-hmm.
So with a foreclosure, the process that Jacinda just explained is the way it typically goes. You typically got to have cash. The title search isn't done, so it's a little different, right? If it's an REO, which is a property that was foreclosed on and now owned back by the bank or an asset management company, then as long as it is in condition, livable condition, and it will pass whatever type of financing appraisal that you have, it can be financed. With FHA, they're still going to do the same appraisal with the safety checks, with peeling paint, windows going up and down, cracks in the windows, siding, flooring, the life of the roof, any major defects. Utilities have to be on, cabinets have to be in place, countertops have to be there. Because I listed for foreclosures before. Why people take countertops and cabinets, I don't know. I've seen people take the chandeliers. I've seen them paint the ceiling fan, but leave the rod. Like I don't know what they were thinking.
A lot
But
of times they'll take whatever they can. Period. Yeah.
But buying an REO and buying a foreclosure are two different processes. Hopefully that gave you a little bit better explanation. Can you tell of common misconceptions about closing costs or the most overlooked items you should know? I'll let you take that one, Jacinda.
I think the most overlooked item is the transfer tax. That it's part of closing costs, and we don't control that. It's state driven. In Georgia, it's 3%, so it's pretty hefty, right? It's pretty hefty transfer tax. So I just say it's really important for you to know or have an idea of what your fees are going to be. And if you're with a good lender, they'll actually input that according to your state when they send you your initial CD. And the attorney, we send our fees over and everything that happens. I just think transfer tax is probably the most overlooked. And right behind that is going to be your title insurance. And most title companies or law firms won't even do your closing if you're not doing an owner's title insurance policy, because what that does is it protects them if they miss something, right? So just know that title insurance is pretty much going to be a part of your closing, and that transfer tax, whatever it is for your state, is going to be a part of your closing. I feel like those are the most overlooked items.
I would say those are probably the most looked items, as well as maybe the discount points being charged.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or you saying,
Mm-hmm.
or you're saying you're not aware of what the discount points were, or you didn't know they were that high.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably overlooked. I also something that gets overlooked by a lot of people, and it's not necessarily overlooked, is what I've ran into probably twice this year already, is agents, and it's not their fault, right? The listing agent listing the property and what the taxes show up in the MLS and it just showing county. And then all of a sudden it's side of the city limits of Atlanta, inside the
Mhm,
city limits of
mhm.
Stockbridge or McDonough. So sometimes that alone and those extra taxes could be the difference between you qualifying or needing more money than expected for closing costs, but you typically don't know that until Jacinda's crew brings back the title policy.
Right,
That's why title needs to be ordered up front in advance to give us time to review.
right.
Let's see. Um, Laquana, they haven't removed the contingency in the due diligence, and it was up today at 5 p.m. So it
So,
sounds like there was a property that was under contract and they didn't remove whatever contingencies it was, and the due diligence was up at 5. So I think she wants to know, is there still a deal, or how do you proceed in that fashion?
it depends. It really depends on how the contract was structured. So when you say contingencies, what do you think she means by contingencies? Like, what are we talking about here?
So I know Laquana, and
Okay.
her house is under contract.
Okay.
So evidently, they may have had some contingencies that were due on purchasing her home. I'm just guessing this part,
Mhm.
and they needed to turn in what they needed to and provide whatever items they needed during the due diligence period. And if it was up today, I think she wants to know: am I still under contract? Do I get out of contract? How do I move forward?
Call me. I need more information. But generally, if they didn't provide the contingencies, you can unilaterally terminate that contract if you so desire. But I think the best answer is I got to know everything. And the best thing for you to do is then consult with whoever the closing attorney is, or you can give me a call. Kevin has my number. You can call me and we could talk through it. That way I can truly understand everything that's happening, and be able to give you like true sound advice. But generally speaking, if they haven't met the contingencies and the due diligence period is over, they haven't fulfilled their obligation, you can unilaterally terminate.
Gotcha. I was told we have to have hard copies ordered first in order to start the pre-approval process. Is that accurate? Hard copies of what? And I see that you say you're currently overseas. Drop in the chat what you mean by hard copies. Overseas, thank you. Doing it right now. Ice Queen. Um, I paid off my mortgage and would like to sell and downsize in another state, but I was laid off in October. What is the length of employment needed for a mortgage? So you need to have a 2 year history of working, period, like 24 months of working, period. If your gap in between employment is over 6 months, we need at least 6 months to continue, 6 months on that job for you to be able to get financed, unless there's an extenuating circumstance. However, typically 6 months. And when I say 2 years, you don't have to be on that job for 2 years. Once you start working back at, let's say, Google, we get your 2 year work history from your previous employer, whether that's one employer, two employers, or three employers. We go back and get a 24-month work history for you. Inside that 24-month work history, that 6 month gap is not included. So we're in February, October, November, December, January, February, March. In order for you not to have to be on your job for 6 months, you should have a job by March, in March, and then you'll be good to go. Um, that is a great question. Kevin Jefferson is able to do mortgages in all 50 states and DC. Included in the MISSISSIPPI. I can help you. What type of loan do you recommend for $100,000 fixer-upper in a great neighborhood, or is it at all around bad deal? If it's in a great neighborhood and $100,000, I would say do a FHA 203K. If you're a veteran, there is a VA renovation loan. There's if you're in a rural area, there's also a USDA renovation loan.
Mhm.
And then if you can do conventional financing, you can do a conventional renovation loan called home style. Whichever one you qualify for would work. Unless the house can be blown down or pushed over with a finger, it's worth exploring. I think so. What do you think, Jacinda, since you're an investor as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Take advantage of the renovation loans. You're gonna need to check the comps because they're gonna need those. What else has sold near your house? What's the value of the houses near your house, right? And it's important to know whether it's going to be a primary residence or an investment property for you. So
Okay.
those are things you got to discuss with the lender up front so they can tell you what programs you actually qualify for.
Got you. Let's see next. All right, let's see. Our new duty station assignment officially documented order stating we are where we're relocating to. We have soft orders to Virginia, meaning they are in the system and have been communicated. So as long as we have your service orders um, prior to closing, we'll be good to go. So I would not let that hinder you from getting pre-approved because again, you still may need work. So, it gives you a little bit of time. And if you
Mhm.
don't need work and you know that you're still going to Virginia, then you will just be in position. And when the service orders come in, you just pass them along to us because it's going to be an underwriting guideline because we're going to see that you're overseas. Does Miss Walker practice in the state of Wisconsin?
I do not. I practice primarily in the state of Georgia, and I'm also licensed in New York.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. Good old
NYC.
reciprocity. Yup.
Okay. That's good to know.
Hmm.
Um, Shoot, I had a client that went under contract in New York.
Oh, really? New York is tough. I'm actually looking to get. I don't have title insurance up there. I don't do closings in New York. New York is tough. I'm exploring. I'm interested in Florida, Texas, and New York. Those are the next states I'm interested in, like exploring to be able to do closings in.
Got you. Yeah, it was different. They had like
Very
a
different.
shared driveway, and the crazy part is I was watching emails go back and forth, and it was like the realtor disputing it with the attorney.
Wow.
Like, well, the seller lives there. Like, yeah, it's his shared driveway and they have it now. But does it convey to the new buyer? Do you have to, like it was somewhere they had to get permission from
The other
the
part.
other party
It sounds like an
for them.
easement.
Yep,
Hmm.
it's an easement issue. Yep,
Hmm.
to access it.
And
So,
you sure do.
yep,
If it's not an easement that's attached to the land, you have to get permission to transfer it. So it gets complicated. That means that they
gotcha,
didn't draft it correctly to begin with.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you know reputable home inspectors in these states? I've heard horror stories for repairs after owning homes for 6 to 12 months. Any additional inspections you would recommend? I know home inspectors in different states. I don't know them in all 50 states. If you can tell me what state you're in, I may know one. If not, I would go off of the recommendation of your realtor.
Yeah.
I would also go online and check out that home inspector's reviews because we're review happy and we will complain if someone does not do something right nowadays. And so listen, I'm gonna take up for the home inspector. When you're buying a home, whether new or used, you're going to run into some sort of problems, right? He or she could have done the home inspection. Let's say they did the home inspection today. And when they did the home inspection today, the HVAC was working when they tried it. The oven was coming on when they tried it. The windows were going up when they tried it, and everything worked fine. Let's say you had a delay in your closing, and closing happened in April. Unless you had him or her come back out and do the inspection, they can't guarantee how long it's going to last. The seller may have put enough Freon in there just so the air could cut on. You don't know that, right? Um, so then someone would say, "Hey, buy a home warranty." I'm not really sure about that either. I'm kind of home warranties are kind of a toss up to me, um, but I would say just make sure you get a reputable inspector. You're paying for their services. Ask them for any type of questions. Now, what I will tell you is home inspectors are going to dig deep if you get a good one. Like I've even seen doorknob on the bedroom door loose, like on a home inspection before. That's a bit much. Take the screw it in, but they did their job thoroughly. They can't predict when something's going to tear up or not tear up. And if they typically have questions, they're going to ask you. Example, if the HVAC seems to look kind of old, it works, but they're not sure how long. They're going to put a statement in their home inspection to say, please seek inspection from HVAC professional. If it's something wrong with the roof, they're going to say the same thing. If they see something wrong with the plumbing, they're going to do the same thing. If it's something wrong with the foundation, they're going to mention structural engineer. That way, if there is a question and you're asking me, hey, is there any type of other inspection I should get? I would have someone who's familiar with HVAC come take a look. Someone familiar with roofs to take a look. A structural engineer to take a look. Sometimes you don't necessarily have to have the structural engineer. Maybe you just get a contractor who's experienced in some of those things. But yeah, depending on what type of financing you get and where you are, will depend on the inspections. Some places require radon inspections. Some reply, like if you're doing a VA loan and you have a well and septic, you need a septic inspection and a water test. So like depending on the type of financing you get will determine what type of inspections you need. Wow, we're over an hour, Jacinda. I told you it goes fast, man.
It does go fast. Real quick though, I would say the number one thing is that even if you're doing new construction, get an inspection. So I think that's the thing that most people aren't prepared for because they're doing new construction. You still want an inspection. And I was blessed because my father is a contractor. So he basically came and did my inspection for me. But I really want you guys to understand that if you're not versed in that area, even with new construction, even if you have to come out of pocket and it's not required, still get it done.
Got you. That's smart because I've seen. I mean, because it's new construction and they've had their inspections. I've seen.
Listen, I started out as a real estate litigator, and most of my like highly contentious litigation cases were from new builds.
Wow.
Like new builds, like custom houses, $1 million houses, custom, water coming through the roof, just things falling apart. So even when it's new construction, you want to still get the inspection done for sure.
Right. Hey guys, listen. If you are new to the channel and you have not subscribed, listen, it doesn't cost you a thing to hit that subscribe button. You'll get notified every time I go live. If you are a family member, one of the people's family, please give me a thumbs up. If you're watching this on the replay and you have questions, comment below. I spent probably about an hour today going through questions that people had put in chats and comments on videos. So I reply myself. It's not a bot. It's not a VA. I reply myself with the answers. And if it's too long for me to answer, I will tell you to reach out to me for an appointment so we can discuss and go back and forth. Guys, this has been amazing. I got time. If you got time, just send it for 2 more questions.
Yeah.
And then we got to wrap it up.
Absolutely.
Let me see. Just seeing somebody say something about the NYC. I'm looking to hire more of our people when purchasing a home. If I don't purchase in New York, I'm looking to purchase across the East Coast. Well, again, I'm able to help in New York in terms of the funding. I can do all 50 states. So I'm assuming I'm your people, but
And I always tell people, if you don't know, like attorneys, we're small. We network small. You know, we're a small network of people. So pretty much, I know attorneys everywhere. So if you really can't find somebody and you're really not sure, if your agent doesn't have someone, because your agent more than likely has a relationship as well, so kind of lean into them. But if you need somebody, you can reach out to me and I could reach into my network and find an attorney for you.
gotcha. Hey guys, this has been great. Again, thumbs up if you think this is helpful to somebody, or you don't remember what Jacinda I said. Do us a favor, go all the way back to the beginning, get your notepad and listen. We also will have chapters where it'll tell, okay, if we talked about specifically about closing costs and you want to figure out what figures are going to be on there, you'll be able to go to that section. But this has been a great live. Hey, Jacinda, I know you are a busy woman. I'm glad I caught you in the country. And I appreciate you for coming on our live. Hey guys, if you have any questions, you're in Georgia or one of the states that Jacinda covers, her contact information will be below. My contact information will be below. And if you are on the fence about purchasing, reach out to me. My calendar link will be below. Schedule an appointment so we can discuss and help you get moving forward. Thank you and have a great night.